I stared in disbelief at my security camera footage. Dozens of strangers splashed in my backyard pool while a woman I barely knew, Karen from 3 houses down, played hostess on my own patio furniture. "Help yourselves to the towels in that cabinet," she directed a family I had never seen before. My private sanctuary, the pool I had saved for years to build, had somehow become the neighborhood water park without my knowledge or consent. My hands trembled as I watched her point new arrivals toward my outdoor shower, my storage shed, my personal space. This was not the first invasion, but it was certainly the most brazen. For months I had been finding evidence of trespassers: wet footprints, moved furniture, forgotten toys floating in the water. Each time I confronted Karen, she would blink those innocent eyes. "Oh, I thought this was the community pool." The police called it a civil matter. The HOA suggested I be more neighborly. That night, as I watched yet another group of strangers cannonball into my pool on Karen's invitation, something inside me snapped. If Karen wanted to treat my private property as a public pool so badly, I would give her exactly what she wanted, but with a twist that would ensure she never sent another uninvited guest to my backyard again. The backyard oasis took me 3 years to complete. Not just the pool itself, an elegant kidney-shaped design with a natural stone waterfall on the deep end, but the entire landscape around it. I had planted privacy hedges along the fence line, installed ambient lighting that made the water glow sapphire blue at night, and carefully selected lounge furniture that withstood the elements while remaining comfortable enough for afternoon naps. This was not just a swimming pool. It was my personal retreat from a demanding job, and the place where I finally felt at peace. I live in Sycamore Heights, a pleasant suburban neighborhood with mature trees and well-maintained homes built in the late 1990s. Most of my neighbors had lived here for at least a decade, creating a stable community where people generally respected boundaries while still being friendly. We had block parties twice a year, informal lawn care competitions in the summer, and a general live-and-let-live attitude that suited me perfectly. The house next to mine belonged to the Petersons, a retired couple who spent winters in Arizona and summers tending to their award-winning roses. On the other side lived the Garcias, a family with teenage children who occasionally used my pool when invited, but always asked permission first. I built the pool after recovering from back surgery 3 years ago. Swimming was the only exercise my doctor recommended that did not aggravate my condition, and having my own pool meant I could maintain my physical therapy routine without driving to the community center every day. What began as medical necessity quickly became my passion. I spent mornings doing gentle laps before work and evenings floating on my back, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. Friends came over for weekend barbecues, but I kept these gatherings small and considerate of neighbors. Everything changed when the Petersons decided to sell their home and move permanently to Arizona. The house stood empty for barely 2 months before a moving truck appeared and new neighbors arrived. Karen Westfield introduced herself that same afternoon, bringing a store-bought pie and a list of questions about the neighborhood. She seemed pleasant enough, a woman in her 40s with highlighted blonde hair and the kind of polished appearance that suggested careful attention to image. Her husband Robert nodded politely beside her but said little, checking his phone while Karen did all the talking. "What a beautiful yard you have," Karen remarked, peering past me toward the glittering pool water visible through my patio doors. "Did the developer include pools with all the houses in this neighborhood?" "No, I had it built myself a few years ago," I explained, noticing how her eyes lingered on the water. "How wonderful," she replied. "Our community in Meadowbrook Estates had the loveliest shared pool. I do miss that sense of togetherness, you know. Nothing brings neighbors closer than sharing amenities." At the time, her comment seemed innocent enough. I even felt a pang of sympathy, thinking she might be missing her old neighborhood. If only I had recognized the warning signs in her careful questions about HOA regulations, her pointed remarks about selfish neighbors in her previous community who refused to share their blessings, or the way she seemed to be mentally measuring my yard as we spoke. These subtle red flags were lost on me then, as I naively welcomed Corinne and Robert to Sycamore Heights, never imagining how quickly my peaceful existence would unravel because of them. The first incident occurred on a Tuesday morning in early June. I had taken the day off work to recover from a mild summer cold and was still in bed when the unmistakable sounds of splashing and laughter drifted through my open bedroom window. At first, I thought I was dreaming. Then confusion set in. Who could possibly be in my pool at 9:30 on a weekday morning? I threw on a robe and hurried to the window. The sight below froze me in place. A family of 4, complete strangers, were swimming in my pool. A man lounged on one of my chairs while a woman watched 2 children splash around in the shallow end. Beach towels I did not recognize were draped over my patio furniture, and a cooler sat open on my outdoor table. My heart pounded as I rushed downstairs and out the back door. The family looked up at me with mild curiosity rather than guilt, which was perhaps the most bewildering part of the entire situation. "Excuse me," I said, struggling to keep my voice level. "This is my private property. May I ask who gave you permission to use my pool?" The man sat up, genuine confusion crossing his face. "The lady down the street, Karen. She said this was the neighborhood pool that everyone uses. Is that not right?" "No, that is not right," I replied, my initial shock shifting to anger. "This is my personal backyard and private pool. Karen had absolutely no authority to send you here." The woman quickly gathered her children, apologizing profusely. "We are so sorry." She seemed so certain. She even walked us halfway here and pointed out the side gate entrance. I escorted them off my property, my mind reeling. Why would Karen tell complete strangers they could use my pool? I immediately walked to her house and rang the doorbell. Karen answered wearing tennis whites, her expression perfectly innocent. "Did you tell a family they could use my pool this morning?" I asked directly. Karen's eyes widened. "Oh, there must have been a misunderstanding. When they asked about neighborhood amenities, I mentioned your lovely pool. They must have thought I meant it was a community pool. I am so sorry about the confusion." Her apology sounded rehearsed, and something about her smile did not reach her eyes. Nevertheless, I clearly explained that my pool was private property and not available for neighborhood use. Corinne nodded sympathetically, assured me it would not happen again, and closed her door. I wanted to believe the incident was truly a misunderstanding, but an uneasy feeling lingered. The next day, I installed 2 clear private property, no trespassing signs on my fence and gate. By the weekend, both signs had mysteriously disappeared. I replaced them with larger ones, secured with heavy-duty fasteners. These lasted barely a week before they too vanished. Meanwhile, the uninvited visits continued. I returned from work to find wet footprints on my patio, pool toys I did not own floating in the water, and once, a family actively swimming who claimed, "Karen said everyone uses this pool during summer afternoons." Another time, I discovered teenagers lounging by the water who insisted, "The blonde lady said the owner is cool with people using the pool when he is not home." Each time I confronted Corinne, each time she had a different excuse. "Oh, those must have been my cousins visiting from out of town. I only mentioned your pool in passing." Or, "I never said they could use it, just that it was beautiful to look at." Or my personal favorite, I thought you had mentioned wanting to share pool access at the block party, a conversation that had never occurred. I began documenting every incident. I installed security cameras that captured Karen actively walking people to my side gate, gesturing toward my backyard with enthusiastic waves, even demonstrating how to unlatch the gate. The footage made my blood boil. There was nothing ambiguous about her actions. She was deliberately sending people to trespass on my property. My privacy vanished. I became anxious about leaving my house, knowing strangers might be making themselves at home in my backyard while I was gone. I started waking to check the pool area at the slightest sound in the night. My sanctuary had been violated, my peace destroyed by a neighbor who, for reasons I could not comprehend, had decided my private property was hers to distribute access to. As summer progressed, the invasion worsened. The initial trickle of trespassers became a steady stream, with Karen apparently becoming bolder in her recruitment efforts. My backyard was no longer my own, and something had to be done before I lost my mind entirely. By mid-July, Karen had escalated her campaign. No longer content with sending the occasional family to my pool, she began actively promoting it throughout the neighborhood and beyond. I discovered this when Mrs. Garcia, my longtime neighbor, approached me in my driveway one evening. "I wanted to check if the rumors are true," she said, looking uncomfortable. "Karen is telling everyone that you agreed to open your pool to the neighborhood this summer because the community center pool is closed for renovations. She is even suggesting you asked her to coordinate a schedule." My jaw dropped. Absolutely not true. I never said anything remotely like that. Mrs. Garcia nodded. I thought it sounded strange. She has been quite insistent about it at neighborhood gatherings. She calls you selfish behind your back when you are not there. This revelation stunned me. Karen was not just sending random strangers to my pool, she was actively undermining my reputation in the community. The next day, I reviewed my security camera footage more carefully and was horrified by what I found. Karen had developed a routine. Almost daily, she would walk up and down our street around 11 a.m., apparently looking for neighbors or visitors outside. When she spotted someone, she would engage them in conversation that inevitably led to gesturing toward my house. Multiple times per week, she physically walked groups to my side gate. In one particularly disturbing clip, Karen could be clearly seen demonstrating how to jiggle the latch on my gate when it stuck. "The owner never minds," her voice came through the microphone. "He understands that in this heat, everyone needs access to a pool. He is just too busy to manage it himself, so I help coordinate." I had heard enough. I marched directly to Karen's house, security footage downloaded to my phone. When she answered the door, her practiced smile faltered slightly at my expression. "We need to talk about you sending people to my pool and spreading lies about me in the neighborhood," I said firmly. Karen stepped onto her porch, closing the door behind her. "I do not know what you are talking about. I have been very clear with everyone that your property is private." I held up my phone and played the video of her instructing strangers on how to enter my gate. Her face hardened as she watched. "You are filming me. That feels invasive," she said, completely ignoring her own boundary violations captured on video. "Karen, this has to stop immediately. You have no right to invite people onto my property." Her mask finally slipped. "If you were not so selfish, you would share with the neighborhood. People with pools have a responsibility to the community, especially during hot summers like this. Do you know the Hendersons' little boy has asthma? Their doctor recommended swimming, but they cannot afford membership at the country club." I stared at her, astonished by her entitlement. My medical needs are why I built the pool in the first place. And regardless of anyone's situation, you cannot volunteer other people's private property. Well, perhaps if you were more community-minded, people would not think you are such a recluse, she shot back. I am just trying to help you integrate better. The conversation was clearly pointless. I left and immediately emailed our HOA representative, James Fulton, requesting an emergency mediation session. His response was disheartening. I have actually received several complaints about your unwillingness to participate in neighborhood activities, James wrote. Karen Westfield has been quite vocal about feeling unwelcome when she has tried to build community spirit. Perhaps we could discuss how to find a middle ground on the pool access issue. It was surreal. Karen had somehow positioned herself as the victim and me as the antisocial villain. I requested copies of these complaints and was stunned to receive a file containing 6 different emails from various neighbors, all with similar language about my standoffish attitude and reluctance to share amenities. I began reaching out to these neighbors directly. The Hendersons, mentioned in Karen's tirade about the boy with asthma, were mortified. "We never complained about you," Mrs. Henderson insisted. "Karen told us you had offered pool access to families with health needs, but were now suddenly withdrawing the offer. We would never presume to use your pool without direct permission from you." One by one, neighbors confirmed that Karen had manipulated them with different stories, all portraying me as initially generous, but suddenly becoming selfish and reclusive. She had manufactured an entire false narrative about my supposed obligations and broken promises. Even more disturbing were the social media posts I discovered when searching my address online. Strangers had checked in at my house, tagging it as Sycamore Heights Neighborhood Pool on various platforms. Photos showed people I had never met lounging beside my pool, criticizing the pool monitor, presumably me, for being strict about hours. One review complained there were not enough chairs for the size of the community. My private backyard had developed an online presence as a public facility, complete with reviews and photos. The invasion had moved beyond physical trespassing to a complete public relations nightmare. People I had never met had opinions about my community service, based entirely on Karen's elaborate fictions. My sense of violation deepened with each discovery. This was no longer just about unwanted swimmers. It was a systematic campaign to override my property rights and privacy through social manipulation and outright lies. Karen had manufactured a completely fictional agreement that never existed and, worse, had convinced a significant portion of the neighborhood that I was the one breaking promises. My reputation was being destroyed, while my privacy was being violated daily, and conventional approaches to resolving the conflict were failing spectacularly. The situation reached its breaking point on the last weekend of July. I had been invited to my cousin's wedding 3 hours away, my first overnight trip since the pool invasions began. Despite my anxiety about leaving my property unattended, I installed additional camera coverage, double-secured all gates and doors, and departed early Saturday morning with plans to return Sunday afternoon. The security alerts began hitting my phone around noon while I was at the wedding reception. At first, I ignored them, not wanting to disrupt the celebration for what I assumed would be yet another trespassing incident I could address later. By 3 p.m., the notifications had become so frequent that I finally stepped away to check the live feed from my backyard cameras. What I saw made me physically ill. My backyard had been transformed into a full-blown pool party, not just a few trespassers. There were at least 30 people in and around my pool. Children splashed in the shallow end while teenagers performed dangerous dives from the side. Adults lounged on my furniture, drinks in hand. Someone had moved my patio umbrella. Someone else was using my outdoor grill. And there, in the center of it all, was Karen, playing hostess in my backyard. She directed newcomers to available seating areas, showed a woman where my outdoor bathroom was located, and even opened my pool equipment shed to retrieve pool toys I kept stored there. She wore a wide-brimmed sun hat and carried a tray of drinks as if this were her own garden party. I immediately called the police. "There are dozens of trespassers in my backyard pool right now," I explained. "I am watching them on security cameras. I am out of town at a family wedding." "Are they breaking in or causing damage?" the dispatcher asked. "They are using my pool without permission. One person is grilling on my patio. Another just went into my pool house." After a pause, the dispatcher replied, "We will send someone to check, but if there is no forced entry, this may be considered a civil matter between neighbors rather than criminal trespassing." I ended the call and immediately headed for my car, apologizing to my cousin for missing the remainder of the reception. The 3-hour drive home was excruciating. I alternated between checking the security feed, where the party continued unabated, and focusing on the road with white-knuckled intensity. By the time I arrived home, most of the trespassers had left. The police had indeed shown up, but according to my doorbell camera footage, Karen had smoothly explained that there was a misunderstanding and that she had permission to host the gathering. The officers, finding no signs of forced entry and faced with Karen's confident assurances, had simply advised the group to keep the noise down and left. My backyard was a disaster zone. Empty cups floated in the pool alongside candy wrappers and deflated inflatables. Towels draped every surface. Trash overflowed from my bins and littered the grass. The grill was caked with burned food residue. Someone had spilled what appeared to be red wine on my custom outdoor cushions. Most alarmingly, my security footage revealed a teenage boy performing a reckless dive that ended with him hitting his head on the pool edge. He had emerged seemingly unharmed, but the footage showed just how close the incident had come to potential tragedy. If someone had been seriously injured or, I could barely bring myself to think it, drowned in my pool during this unauthorized party, I could have been legally liable despite not even being present. I spent that evening cleaning up the mess, reviewing security footage and documenting the damage. Around 9 p.m., my doorbell rang. It was Karen. "I just wanted to thank you for being so generous with your pool today," she said brightly. "Everyone had such a wonderful time. The Robertsons from 2 streets over were particularly impressed. They had no idea our neighborhood had such amazing amenities." I stared at her, momentarily speechless at her audacity. "Karen, you hosted an unauthorized party in my backyard while I was out of town. You entered my pool house and used my grill without permission. This was not generosity. This was trespassing on a massive scale." Karen's smile remained fixed, though her eyes hardened. "You know, that attitude is why people think you are difficult. My previous neighbor with a pool understood community responsibility. Perhaps Sycamore Heights is not the right fit for someone so territorial." As she walked away, something fundamental shifted inside me. I had tried reasoning. I had installed signs and cameras. I had attempted mediation through proper channels. Nothing had worked against this level of entitled determination. Karen clearly believed she had the right to commandeer my property for community use, and conventional solutions had proven ineffective. That night, lying awake and staring at my ceiling, I made a decision. If logical approaches could not penetrate Karen's sense of entitlement, perhaps a more creative solution was needed. one that would make her regret ever sending a single person to my public pool. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. This situation required my full attention. I sat at my kitchen table with a notepad, brainstorming potential solutions. My first thought was to install a locking pool cover that could only be removed with a key. But that would not address the reputational damage Karen had done or prevent people from continuing to enter my yard. I considered a taller fence with barbed wire, but HOA regulations prohibited such aggressive security measures. What I needed was not just a physical barrier but a psychological one, something that would make Karen herself stop sending people to my pool. And suddenly, the perfect plan crystallized in my mind. If Karen wanted to treat my pool as public property, I would give her exactly what she wanted, but on my terms. The plan required careful research to ensure it remained legal. I spent the morning consulting with two different sources. First, I called my cousin Rick, a lawyer who specialized in property disputes. "I need to know," I asked him, "what is the legal difference between a booby trap and a deterrent? I do not want to break any laws." Rick explained the crucial distinction. A booby trap is designed to cause injury and is illegal. A deterrent discourages trespassing without causing harm. For example, you cannot set up tripwires, but you can install motion-activated sprinklers. Next, I contacted a professional pool maintenance company and spoke with their chemical specialist. "Is there a safe, temporary way to make pool water look extremely unappealing without making it harmful?" I asked. The specialist chuckled. "Actually, yes. We have non-toxic, biodegradable dyes used for leak detection in pools. The green one makes water look like something from a science fiction movie, completely safe for swimming but visually very off-putting. It naturally breaks down in about 48-72 hours with proper pool circulation." I ordered an emergency delivery of the green dye, paying extra for same-day service. While waiting, I created a new social media account using a generic neighborhood name. Through this account, I designed an event titled Sycamore Heights Extreme Public Pool Day Green Slime Challenge, scheduled for the upcoming Saturday. The description read, "The neighborhood pool will feature special green slime water perfect for TikTok challenges. First 50 participants get free pool access and the chance to be part of a viral sensation. Bring your cameras and swimwear." I strategically promoted the event using targeted ads that would appear in feeds of people within a 15-mile radius of our neighborhood, far enough to attract strangers, but close enough for them to actually attend. I specifically included hashtags popular with TikTok content creators and Instagram influencers looking for unique backdrops. Next, I contacted 3 friends who had significant social media followings. Miguel ran a popular TikTok channel reviewing unusual experiences. Jenna had a substantial Instagram following for her comedy sketches. Devin was known for documenting weird suburban phenomena across multiple platforms. "I need your help with a situation," I explained to each of them, detailing Karen's months of boundary violations and the escalating invasions of my property. "I am not looking to harm anyone, just create a scenario where the consequences of her actions become abundantly clear." All 3 immediately agreed to help, recognizing the justice in my plan. They would arrive early on Saturday, pose as random social media influencers responding to the event posting, and document everything that happened, particularly Karen's reactions. I spent the remainder of the week methodically preparing my property. I installed 4 additional hidden cameras in plant pots and tree branches, positioned specifically to capture reactions at my gate and pool area. I printed laminated signs that read "Official Public Pool, use at own risk," which I would place only after the plan was in motion. I purchased a waterproof speaker system that could be hidden in the landscaping. The most challenging aspect was timing the execution perfectly. Through careful observation and neighborhood gossip, I learned that Karen's sister and her family would be visiting that weekend. Karen had been overheard at the local supermarket boasting about the neighborhood amenities she would show them. This provided the perfect opportunity. Karen would be especially motivated to showcase her pool access when family was visiting. Friday night, I set my alarm for 5 a.m. Everything was prepared. The pool dye hidden in my garage, the cameras checked and memory cards emptied for maximum recording time, and my friends on standby with their equipment. I had even prepared a folder of evidence, printed screenshots from security footage showing Karen directing strangers to my pool, statements from neighbors she had manipulated, and copies of the trespassing police reports. As I lay in bed that final night before executing my plan, I felt a strange calm replace the anxiety that had dominated my life for months. This was not just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my property and peace of mind. If conventional methods could not stop Karen's entitlement, perhaps public consequences would succeed where private conversations had failed. Tomorrow would be the day Karen learned that treating someone else's private property as a public amenity had consequences. Bright green, highly visible, impossibly embarrassing consequences that would be documented for all to see. For the first time in weeks, I slept soundly through the night, looking forward to the morning. Saturday morning dawned clear and hot, perfect pool weather. I rose at 5 a.m., well before any neighbors would be awake. The early morning light cast long shadows across my backyard as I carefully added the pool dye to the water. The transformation was remarkable. Within minutes, my crystal blue pool turned a vibrant, almost glowing shade of green that brought to mind toxic waste from a cartoon. It looked alarming but remained completely harmless, exactly as planned. I tested the water chemistry to confirm everything remained safe, despite its uninviting appearance. I then positioned my official public pool signs face down under planters, ready to be revealed later. The hidden cameras were checked one final time, and the waterproof speakers concealed in strategic locations around the pool area. By 7 a.m., everything was prepared. I retreated indoors to my home office, which offered a perfect view of both my backyard and Karen's front door across the street. At 8:30 a.m., my security system alerted me to movement at my side gate. Karen had emerged from her house for her usual morning inspection of the neighborhood. She walked past my property, then did a dramatic double-take upon seeing the green pool water. She approached my fence, standing on tiptoes to get a better look. Her expression shifted from confusion to disgust and finally settled on smug satisfaction. Clearly, she assumed I had neglected my pool maintenance, allowing algae to overtake the water. She hurried away, pulling out her phone as she walked, no doubt to spread news of my disgusting pool situation. By 10 a.m., my friends had arrived and taken positions around the neighborhood. Miguel parked his car a block away, equipment ready. Jenna and Devin positioned themselves at different approach points, prepared to converge when the plan activated. I sent them all the signal to begin. Operation Green Light is a go. At exactly 10:30 a.m., right on schedule, the first carload of TikTokers arrived. 4 college-aged individuals clutching phones and small equipment bags emerged from a compact car and approached my side gate. They read the event details from their phones, looked at my house number to confirm the location, and then, finding the gate unlocked as promised in the event description, entered my backyard. Their excited exclamations upon seeing the vivid green pool carried clearly through my security system. "This is perfect for the slime challenge," one young woman squealed, immediately beginning to record a video introduction. Within 15 minutes, 3 more groups had arrived. By 11 a.m., approximately 20 social media enthusiasts were in my backyard, filming introductions, setting up ring lights, and preparing for what they believed was an organized event. None attempted to enter the pool yet. They were busy establishing their shots and waiting for the official start time mentioned in the event posting. At 11:15 a.m., exactly as anticipated, Karen emerged from her house with her sister's family in tow, 2 adults and 3 children, all dressed for swimming. Through my cameras, I watched her leading them confidently toward my gate, gesturing expansively as she spoke. "The community pool is such a wonderful perk of living here," her voice carried clearly through my outdoor microphones. "I practically manage the whole thing. People appreciate having someone take initiative with these shared spaces." Karen rounded the corner to my side gate and froze. Her mouth opened in shock at the sight of nearly 24 strangers with camera equipment surrounding my bright green pool. For several seconds, she simply stared, unable to process the scene before her. One of the TikTokers noticed her and called out cheerfully, "Are you here for the Green Slime Challenge too? We are waiting for the official start at noon." Karen's expression shifted rapidly through confusion, alarm, and then to horror as she realized she had lost control of her pool. She stepped into my backyard, her sister's family trailing behind her. "What is happening here?" she demanded, looking around frantically. "Who organized this? Why is the pool this color?" Another content creator responded casually, "It is on the neighborhood social media page, the Green Slime Challenge event. Are you the coordinator? We have been waiting for someone to give instructions." Karen's face flushed deep red. "There must be some mistake. This is," she hesitated, clearly caught in her own contradiction, "this is not a public event pool." At this precise moment, my friend Miguel approached, camera rolling. "Excuse me, are you the lady who has been telling people this is the public neighborhood pool? We have interviews with 6 people who said you personally directed them here over the past few weeks." Karen turned even redder, looking desperately around the yard now filling with more arrivals. Her sister leaned close to her, whispering something that made Karen shake her head vigorously. "There has been a misunderstanding," Karen announced loudly. "This pool is not available today. Everyone needs to leave immediately." A young man live streaming the event looked confused. "But the event page says this is the neighborhood public pool that is always open to everyone. Someone named Karen confirms it in the comments section." "I am Karen," she snapped, then immediately regretted the admission as several cameras swung toward her. The crowd was growing restless, and more people continued to arrive. Some began questioning whether they had been misled. The confusion was exactly what I had anticipated, the perfect moment for me to make my appearance. I stepped out of my house and walked calmly into the backyard. The crowd parted slightly as I approached. Karen's eyes widened when she saw me, a flicker of genuine fear crossing her face. "Good morning, everyone," I said pleasantly. "I see you have all responded to the Green Slime Challenge event. Welcome to my private residence." Karen stepped forward. "I was just explaining to these people that there has been a mistake and they need to leave." "How interesting," I replied, looking directly at her. "Since according to my security footage, you have been telling people for months that my pool is public property." Several phones were now recording our interaction. Karen's sister had pulled her children back toward the gate, looking mortified. "I never," Karen began, but I cut her off by holding up my phone and playing a security clip of her clearly directing strangers to my pool just 3 days earlier. The crowd murmured. Karen's carefully constructed narrative was collapsing in real time, documented by dozens of cameras. "Everyone," I announced to the gathered crowd, "I apologize for the confusion. This is, in fact, my private residence and personal pool. The event posting was created to demonstrate a point." I turned to face Karen directly. "For months, this woman has been sending strangers to trespass on my property. When confronted privately, she denied it. When shown evidence, she justified it. When reported to authorities, she manipulated the narrative to make me appear unreasonable." Karen's composure crumbled completely. "That is not true. I never told anyone." "You told us," interrupted a woman near the back. "Last week, you said this was the neighborhood pool that everyone could use." "And you showed me how to unlatch the gate," added another person. Miguel stepped forward, camera still rolling. "We have interviews with multiple people who confirm you specifically directed them here, describing it as community property." Karen's sister grabbed her arm. "Karen, what have you done? You told us this was a legitimate neighborhood facility." The crowd's mood shifted from confusion to understanding. Several people apologized to me directly, explaining they had genuinely believed this was a public pool based on information from Karen. I addressed the gathering calmly. "I do not blame any of you who were misled. To demonstrate the extent of this situation, I have documented over 30 separate instances of trespassing directly tied to Karen's instructions." I held up my folder of evidence. "I have statements from neighbors she manipulated with different stories. I have security footage of her entering my property without permission." Karen's face had gone from red to ashen. "You are making me look like some kind of criminal in front of all these people. You cannot just record you doing exactly what you have been doing," I finished for her. "Actually, since you have repeatedly claimed this is public property, I am simply treating it as such, one time only, to illustrate the consequences of your actions." Several TikTokers, now understanding the real story, had redirected their content to document this neighborhood drama instead. "This is better than the slime challenge," one whispered loudly to her camera. Karen made one last desperate attempt. "He is just being difficult. The neighborhood has always had an understanding about shared amenities." At that moment, Mr. Patterson, the HOA president who I had quietly invited, stepped forward from the edge of the crowd. "That is absolutely false, Karen. I have reviewed all HOA documents going back to neighborhood establishment. This has always been private property, and you have been reported multiple times for spreading misinformation within the community." Karen's sister pulled her toward the gate. "We are leaving, now." Her brother-in-law followed, children in tow, all looking mortified by the public spectacle. As they departed, Karen turned back. "You have made an enemy today," she hissed. "This neighborhood will hear about this." "I certainly hope so," I replied calmly. "They should know exactly what happened here." The crowd dispersed gradually after that, most offering apologies and expressing shock at Karen's behavior. My friend stayed behind, helping me restore order to the yard and collecting the contact information of several witnesses who offered to provide statements if needed. As we cleaned up, Miguel showed me some of the footage already circulating online. "This is going viral," he said, scrolling through notifications. "People are using hashtags like Pool Karen and Green Slime Revenge. The internet loves justice stories like this." Within hours, Karen's public meltdown had indeed become a local social media sensation. TikTok videos documenting her contradictions racked up thousands of views. Several neighborhood residents who had been manipulated by Karen's stories reached out to apologize for believing her versions of events. The HOA called an emergency meeting the following week. Karen attended, clearly expecting to defend herself. Instead, she was presented with overwhelming evidence of her deliberate campaign to violate my property rights. The committee voted unanimously to issue her a formal sanction for persistent violation of neighborhood covenants regarding property boundaries and false representation of HOA policies. This behavior reflects poorly on our entire community, Mr. Patterson stated during the meeting. The potential liability issues alone could have impacted all of our insurance rates if someone had been injured during unauthorized use of a private pool. Karen's reputation in the neighborhood collapsed completely. The families she had manipulated now avoided her. Invitations to community events stopped coming. Her carefully constructed image as the neighborhood's social coordinator evaporated overnight. The most satisfying development came 3 weeks later when a "for sale" sign appeared in front of Karen's house. I later learned from the Garcias that Robert had accepted a job transfer to another state, a decision apparently accelerated by the pool incident fallout. On their moving day, I was working in my front garden when Karen approached for one final confrontation. "I hope you are happy," she said bitterly. "You have ruined our standing in this community." I looked up from my flowers calmly. "No, Karen, you did that yourself when you decided my private property was yours to distribute. All I did was make your actions visible." She walked away without another word, and I felt an immense weight lift from my shoulders. By that evening, the moving truck was gone, and so was Karen. I had my pool professionally cleaned to remove any remaining traces of the green dye, though it had already begun to naturally dissipate. I replaced the damaged furniture and repaired the pool equipment shed that had been misused during Karen's unauthorized party. Most importantly, I restored my backyard oasis to its original purpose, my personal sanctuary. The first weekend after Karen moved away, I invited my actual neighbors for a proper, authorized pool party. The Garcias brought homemade salsa. The Hendersons arrived with fresh lemonade. Mrs. Patterson baked her famous chocolate chip cookies. As we enjoyed the afternoon together, Mr. Garcia raised his glass in a toast. "To good neighbors who respect boundaries, and to the beautiful green pool that taught an important lesson." Everyone laughed, and I felt truly at home in my neighborhood once again. The months of invasion had ended, my reputation was restored, and my private pool remained exactly that, private. Sometimes justice comes in unexpected forms, even bright green ones. The occasional TikTok user still drives by, hopping to glimpse the infamous green slime pool from the viral videos. I just wave and point to the new sign on my gate. "Private property, no trespassing." Yes, that private property. Most people laugh and move on, understanding the reference to a neighborhood drama that has become minor internet legend. As for me, I float peacefully in my crystal blue water, enjoying the privacy I fought so creatively to protect. Sometimes the best revenge is not just exposing the truth, but doing it in a way so memorable that no one dares repeat the offense. Karen learned that lesson the hard way, and I got my sanctuary back.